Welcome to Ranking in Public. I'm Laval Chichester. I'm your host. I'm with Marina Paul. Today we're talking about superhero, and the point of Ranking in Public is demystifying this SEO stuff, search engine optimization, and we're showing how we could rank in public. I'm going to share my screen, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into what we've done so far, and then we'll discuss everything. So I've put a few slides together because we want to recap everything that happened, that has happened, and then go from there. So I'm Laval. I run a company called Growth Skills. We have a bunch of clients. We won a bunch of awards. Our tagline is "Growth is intentional," and that really matters because what Marina, as a CEO and founder with very limited time, she is being intentional about learning. An important thing called search engine optimization that will help her grow. Our model is this. We have growth marketing, we run our own brand, and we do training. So obviously this is part of our a training series. And when we say growth marketing, what we mean is that there's things you do at the top of the funnel, right? And that's to get the awareness, the consideration, and get someone to actually come to your website and buy. And search engine optimization is one of those. And then what you want to do is, if they buy, and in Marina's case, one, you know, shorts, you want them to buy the hat, you want them to buy the candle, and so on and so forth, to grow the value of the customer, right? Marina, do you want to just remind them about how amazing you are, and about the brand story?
Yes, of course. So I was a female college athlete and have a pretty interesting story. I experienced extreme highs, like going to the Final Four and being an All American, but I also experienced extreme lows, like my freshman year, almost having to go to rehab for a number of things, but mostly for eating disorders. So my whole story is rooted in connection with myself. And I had lived in such restriction before, like in every single way was restricting myself because I thought that was the best way to make myself the best athlete and the most competitive in the classroom at Georgetown. But what I realized was when I played my best in the field, when I performed my best in the classroom, when I was my best person, I was playing with freedom. And so
Mm.
after I graduated, and I didn't have soccer to kind of hold me up as a crutch anymore, I decided to embark on this journey of this idea of superhero leadership that I had brief experiences with in college. And so I wrote a book called Becoming a Superhero because I was really interested in understanding how do female leaders not just lead to get to a profit, right? How do they actually lead to, with their unique skills, to elevate the lives of others? Because that's what I'm after more so. And then I found business success comes with that, or as a result. And so I wrote Becoming a Superhero, and at the same time, I wanted to create an apparel brand that was specifically for female athletes when they were playing their sports. When I was playing, I'm a 6'1". It says here 6 feet. I grew an inch in the last year. I'm 6'1", so I don't know how I keep growing. But it's cool. I was a 6'1" soccer player. Didn't fit into any of the clothing. Have a lot of muscle, and it only reinforced restriction that I felt inside. So I decided I was going to build what I consider one of the first female sports apparel brands, specifically designed to help female athletes move. And our greatest value is that I have a roster now of 20 female athletes from all different sports who build their respective sports clothing for their sport. So I have basketball teams helping me build the first samples of our basketball product, field hockey teams helping us build the first aspects of our product. And the reason why that is so important is, one, we need to listen more to women, especially female athletes, and what they want. And two, not many people don't know that field hockey is only a right-handed sport. So you can only play with right hand. So they need certain clothing that actually fits the way they move in that sport. And I find that so critical, and I don't see a lot of other competitors doing. So superhero, we're rooted in the freedom to perform. We design our clothes, we design our community to have this freedom. and to not be filled with any restriction.
And I think that's just incredible. And, like we were discussing earlier, I think because of your background, and we were talking about Guy Raz is how I built this, and the story of Spanx, and I'm reading the book, and in that you see that brands that are really successful, they have an incredible founding story. First of all, they have an incredible founder, and you're in this. You're like, you don't play around. You're flying all over the place, like different cities. You're doing the work that needs to get done, and that's incredible. Your product is incredible. I just bought a bunch of it because I want to. I'm going to give it to my wife, and I think you're doing the right thing. You're building something for a problem that you had, and you have. Let's call them. All of those teams are really focus groups in a way where they are building the product that they want for themselves. So it's sort of, you've got performance, like the success built into it, versus the other way around, where a lot of people, they'll build a product thinking that they know the answer already, and they're not taking that feedback. So for everyone listening, you know all of this is bigger than search engine optimization. Search SEO is just one. We're talking about brand building. Search engine optimization is one way to get someone to become aware of you. But if they search and they find you, and they buy, and your stuff is trash, or they don't resonate with the story, you're not going to win. So just really, really pay attention to that. So
Yeah, and I think, and while you come from a hugely decorated sports background, you know that like watching film and understanding what you did well and what you didn't is so important. And I look at that as like the same as customer feedback. It's like, rather than being, I think I started this too, a little bit arrogant. If I got negative feedback, I would like take it super personally, where that's customer feedback is like the one of the greatest gifts you can have. So with this SEO, we can see like what's working, what's not. And then when I am asking these actual athletes, like if it doesn't solve their problems, I need to change something because I built this brand to solve their problems. And if it's not, then that's something that we get to improve. That's like an opportunity.
absolutely, and in a way, that's a product optimization, right? Because that's technically what SEO is improving on a page, and to get someone to buy, and all of that. So that's incredible. Let me share my screen again. And so now, what we did is we started by targeting wavy shorts, so ranking public. We're picking keywords that align with the brand. So these are the two keywords we targeted, and it's because that shit, SPRHRA has a product that we could rank, right? And a page already built out. And that's really important from a strategic standpoint, because what we did is we're targeting a page that we know we're already ranking for. So wavy shorts was on the second page of Google, and stretchy shorts, and the misspelling was on position 30, and the misspelling was on a different position. So instead of starting net new, trying to rank for something incredibly hard, which takes a couple of months, strategically, you just push what you have up to the front. And I'll show you why that's even more important now. So we did that research. We used SEMrush. Shout out to that team, and that company for producing the tool. So we used that to find out this information. We dropped the website into SEMrush, and then we basically looked at what we were ranking for, where we were ranking for it, and so on and so forth. Rankings will naturally fluctuate. Google dropped us a little bit. We're climbing back up. That's part of the game, right? But knowing the words we're ranking for, what page is ranking for, or the words, allows us to then say, okay, how can we improve those rankings? So we did meta titles and descriptions. We optimized those. We looked at the product page. We used Surfer SEO to drop in a keyword, and what that then does, it uses AI to look at the top three, what pages are ranking in the top three, and then it gives us, okay, here's the words, the number of words you need on the page. Here's the heading structures. Here's the semantic words that you're going to need, and you need these because search engines, even though we're targeting this word, they're going to need synonyms. They're going to need other words that are related to this word to allow you to rank. And you're going to need to add those onto the page. So instead of guessing, we use AI for that, right? And then we use Chat GPT to build an outline and pull in some frequently asked questions, and same thing with Surfer. Then we wrote, like a human wrote, we wrote the answers to all of that. We optimized the images, so the alt text and the file name. And this is for ADA compliance, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act. Litigation's up 300%. You don't want to get sued, but SEO helps with a lot of the ADA compliance. And most importantly, Marina implemented it. I think in episode 2 or 3, you could see her actually doing the work, putting it into the page, saving it, updating it, and we showed you that work, right? When you look at the results so far, you see that we're in position 3 for wavy shorts, right? Which is great. And again, this is SEMrush, this is a tool. You'll see that we're actually in position 4, but and I'll explain why they think it's position 3. And then you see that stretchy shorts, we drop back a little bit, but it's all good. The game is to continue to push and do the work to keep your rankings where they are, right? So and we're right behind Etsy and Amazon. So if this image decides to load, we're going to show you the actual layout of the page. Maybe it's mad at me, so I'm gonna have to.
Yeah. I also, I would say that going through these exercises with you, Val, it's ingrained in my head now of how I think about writing content for our social media, for our emails, which our emails I need to put into our journal in
Mhm.
their own form, but it's I now have it in my head to focus on some of those keywords that are really working for us so that because I know that it helps drive traffic to the website. So I think just like actually performing these activities with you have helped me in so many other ways in how to orient how I write content for us.
Yeah, yeah. You want to know what people are actually looking for, how they what they're searching for, and this is one of many words, right? So I think the presentation loaded back up, but I'll show you in real time. This is an incognito search, so it's not influenced by my search history, and I'm not signed in, right? So you're on that search. You'll see first you've got sponsored listings. They're here. You got Amazon, you got another Amazon link that wasn't there actually before. You've got some images, and then you've got Etsy, then you've got us, right? And what's good about this is there's things called schema markup, and I'll talk more about that. You see that some people will skip this listing and click here because they have the rating and reviews displayed, and Etsy doesn't have it, so they might skip this and go straight to us because we have the ratings and reviews in here. We have the schema data set to pull in there. You got ratings and reviews, you got the price, you see that it's in stock, you've got an image, and we wrote wavy stretchy shorts. That's the keyword in the front. That's why we're ranking. Then non-restrictive athletic, and this is a little cut off, and then the brand at the end. But it's non-restrictive. It's a value prop, and I think we have athletic wear in there. And what's good about this too is because we optimized the image. This is our picture. So when you click here, if someone's like, "Oh, I don't care about these listings. I'm gonna look at these." This is not it. This is the one. When you click here, you see that we get this big pop up, and it shows more about the brand. It shows another one, and that's really important because we did the work to optimize it for image search, right? And when you think about a page, there's so many different things you could optimize on that page. And when you look at a Google results, there's so many different ways they show information. And I think eventually we would want to update the product page with a video so that we're ranking on videos and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So that work, has done us well, and we're ranking well because of it, right?
I can see
Um,
your image there. That's so cool.
yeah, yeah, and it's funny, and that's why also you have to actually, like, okay, we have tools that show us this, but you have to look at the actual environment to understand it, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
have to see what's going on the specific search for those words, and I think that's a really really important thing, because then you could say, okay, I need to do more of this, or stop doing that XYZ, or you can see what people are doing, what the competitors are doing, or even what new, like Google's changing, and that brings us to this. Google's changing their search results constantly. So they might put widgets, all the different things in there, and if you're not aware of, you're not actually, and as a CEO, I don't think you're expected to constantly do this, but the teams that you hire to do this type of work, they live in the trenches, right? So they live in the SERPs, and that's their job. That's the craft, to be able to read this and see what's going on, to then update the strategy and tactics. And why all of this is very, very important is Google's rolling out generative search AI basically in the rankings, right? So SEO is going to get a ton harder, but it's still going to be really, really important for you to rank. And if you don't have all of these things, in place, if you don't have the schema markup, you're not going to get into the AI recommendations. And what this means is, what they're doing is, they're adding, when you do a search, you'll be able to click a button, and then you'll have something like a chat GPT AI experience that you could ask it questions, and you could basically chat with it, and it'll give you recommendations. It'll remember what you've asked. It'll remember that query. And then if you don't have the semantic things on the page, like the schema markup, which gives us the ability to show these things, right? If you don't have that, this AI won't pull you in and won't recommend your products as part of this experience, right? And that's really really important, because right now I know there are brands and that basically have a ton of SEO recommendations, but they've deprioritized them. Whatever, maybe they'll do the bare minimum, but when this rolls out, they're going to have to do 100% of everything, especially the semantic markup type of things, because you know this is going to push rankings under the fold. So if you're not ranking, in the top three positions, especially number one and number two, you're going to be invisible, and organic traffic is going to disappear, right? It's going to get less and less and less, and some of the the studies are showing like 20% it might like drop lower on traffic from Google, right? And it's huge, right? And Google just wants to create a better experience for their searchers, so they're going to do everything they can to, one, keep them on the page, and quickly give them those results. And so if you're half-assing your SEO, or not taking this seriously, like, just, you got zero chance, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and I was thinking about it. So I was searching Google for something, and I was trying to find the lowest price with decent amount of quality for this one item.
mhm.
I immediately went to like the bottom of the first page. I think I clicked on the second page, but I was searching for lowest price, and I knew the higher prices would probably, and with higher value, would probably be up front. But
Mhm.
so if we are ranked lower on page, like the lowest on page one, or we're on page two, to me that communicates low price, or just low value
Right.
overall. And so, to your point about like needing to be in like the top three or four, it's just critical.
Absolutely, and you, like, the brands can do this, but a lot of people just don't take it seriously for whatever reason. So
Mm-hmm.
this brings me back to growth marketing, right? So as you're thinking about the world, and this is obviously advice for everyone else, but specifically for you, Marina, there's demand generation and capture at the top, and you already said it. You have a bunch of teams that are giving you product feedback, and once the product's built, they become distribution and influence in their own right, because they're going to show off your product. What I think you need to do, and I don't know if you've done this already, is we can't just rely on SEO, right? That's just the world. That, first of all, that's just good marketing. You don't just rely on one channel. Even though you have to use that channel and make sure that you're dominant in that channel,
Mm-hmm.
because it's human behavior. People search, right?
Yeah.
So my recommendation is you should create a brand story that tells your vision. So a video of you talking about your story and your mission and all of that and weave that, and that should live on the page because people ingest content different. Some people will read, but some people will they video is the language that they communicate in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that I think you should knock out. The other one I would do is you should create product videos, right? And product videos showing how you make it, because what you explained about the new fabric, like you should document that
Mm-hmm.
because it's incredible how you're making it, and show that product, show people wearing it, show the use cases, because that explanation of the level of care that you're building into your product is what's going to get them to buy, and then what's going to get them to stay loyal. And video is one of the best ways you could communicate those types of
Mm-hmm.
things, right? And then I think you need to turn on Google Ads. You need to turn on Instagram ads, because and you don't have to do this right away, but again, you have to diversify where you're going to get your traffic and your sales from. It can't be organic. I think there's going to be a moment in time where you should push for press, and I would highly recommend trying to get it. I would highly recommend building your plan and getting prepared to push for Women's History Month next year, uh,
Mm-hmm.
because and like in January or a little earlier than that, I would even get into December, like reaching out to press to try and sell your story to get booked for March, because everyone, they're looking for those stories. So be prepared, and then have everything in place for March for you to blow up, and run a real tight campaign during March, of next year, so that you could drive some sales. And there's other things. So go ahead.
Sorry, really quick. I'm just thinking too. The other thing is like the Women's World Cup is this summer, so there's always huge traffic after that too.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I was soccer, so yeah.
No, no, no. So that's brilliant. So the other thing you have to, I think you're aiming to raise money, and if you're looking to raise VC dollars, you have to show track record. You actually have to
Mm-hmm.
show sales, right? So these moments, I think, even though World Cup is a anomaly, showing that people will buy during that time is important, because there are all these other, you know, women focused events that happen throughout the year. And when you roll out a marketing plan, you put those on the calendar, and then whatever the is it every 4 years for Women's World Cup?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the next 4 years you could say, hey, this year we made X amount of sales. We think we could 3x that the next time this rolls around, because we're a bit more established. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like really getting into these. You start to set a benchmark and say, we've made this amount of sales with X amount of revenue. We put it into this. Here's our 5 year forecast from a sales and revenue standpoint, right? And I think and that's what you're going to need to raise money. And I think there's all these other places, one, marketplaces you could tap into, like you could sell on Etsy, you could sell on Amazon. I like that you started on your own site first, because those marketplaces are distribution channels, in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they understand that you're a brand, they could find you there, because millions of people shop on Amazon. But your goal should be to get them to your site, because you don't really own your Amazon page or anything like that. And I think there's so many different communities that you could tap into. And I think one thing you should attempt to do is run a social contest, right? Where get people to train like a superhero, and
Mm-hmm.
have them and run that kind of contest, because I think I think it'll do very, very well. And then so that's all trying to generate demand for your product and then capture it, right? SEO, we know there's demand for wavy shorts because people are searching for it. Then we try and capture it, and then I think you're already doing this, but on the website, capture the leads, use email to grow the sales. But I think this is really, like, SEO is great, but I found this video and it's just incredible, right? Because she's an influencer, she's communicating in video.
Mm-hmm.
This young lady is here's an athlete. She plays volleyball. She's training, right? And then what I really love is the love and attitude she gives at the end of this video, because she's repping the brand. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you see it in here. But I think if you could get more and more of this type of content, this is where you win. because this is going to drive search, and honestly, you should sell through this and this right here. Boom.
Yeah.
Like that's it, right? That is it. Because you could see that she really really cares about the brand. You could see she loves it, and that's gonna people are gonna feel that, right? And another female athlete's gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna at least give this a try, right?
Yeah.
And the thing, going back to this whole thing about human behavior, there is, yes, people search, right? That's a human behavior. When we were cave people, they crawl out of the caves and they search. But also, when we were cave people, we're built to be social. We drew on the walls and told stories, right? So this is just social media is part of that, and I think doubling down on this audience is where you're going to win and where you're going to create, and that's for anyone listening, right? Like
Yeah.
I might be discussing this and using my chief marketing officer hat, but that's how you're going to build a brand, and then again, if your website, if everything is built to capture that from a search standpoint and all of that, you know,
Yeah.
I think you've done the hard part. You're going to win, basically.
So yeah, and that woman that you showed she's on the English women's national team for beach volleyball. So she's like
Oh wow.
a respected athlete. So that's the athlete program that we're building out. It's like all like I was describing before, but eventually it's going to have women's wrestling and jujitsu athletes as well. But how I think we're seeding in those communities is finding the team captain in each of those communities or on those teams, and then this when your team captain's wearing something, like the whole team wears it or the whole team listens.
For sure, it's like alpha.
Yeah.
When the alpha, male or female, says something or does something, everyone else is going to follow. That's a very, very good strategy, and that's going to reverberate through social media. So that's incredible. So that's what I had for you and everyone from a ranking in public standpoint. Um, from SEO standpoint, continue articles, and we'll continue this work. But got to continue writing articles. Got to target those keywords. Got to keep optimizing. I see you updated the website. It looks good. You're adding more products. So congratulations. It's you're doing a great job, and I'm excited that I was able to actually be able to help you rank for two keywords.
No, thank you so much, and I think just for taking this chance on superhero and believing in it and me, and I'm so excited to continue winning. It's honestly, you think it's, as a small brand, you think that it's kind of impossible, and then you showed me that we can get to number 3. So, but behind 2 of the biggest marketplaces that exist. So,
Yeah, and that's a very good point. That's so. I mean, I think that goes back to being an athlete, right? And you mentioned that I'm a second degree black belt, and I used to fight bare knuckle karate, and I was telling you this and what that is, and this Kyokushin karate. So George St. Pierre, he's a black belt in Kyokushin. That's his background, and he's one of the top MMA. He was like, I think, the middleweight champion forever. And what is, you have a mouthpiece and you have a cup, and it's bare knuckle. You can't punch in the face because we break wooden stuff and bricks with your hand, but and then you just wail on each other for like 2 minutes in his rounds, right? So you retain the damage, and then you go on and you go on, and in that environment, and I got real first. My first fight was difficult. I was not prepared, and I got crushed. But then I trained to be incredibly incredibly disciplined, and like I can knock anyone out if you put them in front of me in that environment. You want to fight, like I can knock him out with any sort of kick. And there's a video online where I dropped this guy in 15 seconds, and that's what and he's like 6'3", 210. I'm only 5'11", 195. But I watched him walk through the opponent before me, and I was like, if I stand and dog fight with this guy, he's gonna crush me. I'm not strong enough. So I set him up, and what I did was I tested to see if he could block, and he was very good. And then I faked this outside crescent axe kick. He threw, knowing that he's going to throw his hands up and when he drops, he's going to block his vision, and then when he can't see my spin hook kick, and when he dropped his hands, and I said, if you relax, you tense to block, and then you're going to relax on the way down, and because his hands are blocking his vision, when I hit him with the kick, he's going to be dead, or it's going to be a dogfight, and I'm gonna lose. And I planned that. I tested in the hallway, and then I executed, and I knocked him out. And the reason, and people see that, and they're like, oh man, it's a lot of strategy, it's a lot of planning, and it's the same thing with search engine optimization or growth marketing. I say that I do, full contact growth and full contact SEO for my clients and for myself, because that's how I see the world. To me, it doesn't matter if you're big and established. I'm going to find a way to penetrate. I'm going to be strategic about it. Notice that we didn't go after, women's shorts. Like that probably has, while it has a ton of search volumes, it's probably like 100% hard to rank for. So
Mhm.
we've already set ourselves up for failure because we weren't strategic about what we were doing, right? And that's all it is. It's like knowing what you're up against, finding the weak spots, executing against that strategy,
Mhm.
and continue to grow. As you do that, and this is from a search engine standpoint, as you do that, the power that you have from a brand standpoint will allow you to beat the Amazons and the Etsy's, because of, and that's what why brand building is important, and the story that you're telling about your brand, and how vulnerable that you are about the fact that you had the struggles in college and all those types of things. I connected with that. So imagine your counterpart who's living this life right now in college, getting it as a female athlete, wearing dudes clothes, mad as hell. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
When they find out about you, you know they're gonna be in love. Then they're gonna be the CEOs of the future. Watch, women are gonna run. So you're getting them in college, and eventually you're gonna get them in high school, right? So your brand has all this power, and the reason it does is because it's authentic. It comes from you, comes from a real story, and you're a superhero. Like it's really incredible. It gives me chills like talking about
Thank
this.
you.
Because I think I've been blessed with the ability to see like just like vision and see. And it's weird to say that about yourself, but I could see certain things being just a smash just based on what it is. And I think I've spent enough time in my career and just working in advertising. You see, like, that's terrible. That's terrible. Oh my God, that's incredible. You could see it, and you're doing all the right things. The brand looks good. It's very the name is unique. Everything is incredible and well thought out, and you're executing, and that's what it is. And you're starting to collect the right people to be able to make it happen. So it's
Yeah.
just a matter of time, and just don't be surprised when you're like, how did I get here on the cover of Forbes and Sports Illustrated? When it's like you're like, how did I get here? And
Yeah.
so you're only a
And
few years away from that.
yeah. And the way that you draw back so much to your like this fight that you just described, I
Hmm.
draw back to so many distinct conversations I had with all my teammates and still do, but like so many distinct ones. And to your point about just like we don't have to go after women's shorts right now. Also, I know the way female athletes talk because they're
Hmm.
my best friends. I am one. I've been around them for 25, 28 years now. And they describe things in their functionality, which is why I named the shorts that way. Like they don't
Hmm.
describe things as like the Marina short. They'll be like, what's the thing that's like super stretchy that like doesn't suck my thighs? Like they describe things like that. And so I
Hmm.
think what we learned is like you can make that if you speaking so much to your customer and how they relate to the product is so important and will help you win. And now I have people reaching out being like, I love my wavy stretchies. And like it's becoming, we can make the name and then hopefully the jump wrap spandex, we can make that name like something of its own.
Absolutely, absolutely. You could amplify that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could do a campaign just literally speaking those words. I love, and what that does is inflate search around those terms, and then you'll rank for it for free. And I was telling Jess Cook on this other podcast that I do. She's like this brilliant like content marketing like expert, and I was telling her about how TripAdvisor did exactly that. What they did was they ran a TV spot that says, "Don't search New York hotel or Rome hotel. Search TripAdvisor New York hotel. Search TripAdvisor Rome
Mm-hmm.
hotel." And they ran TV spots that were split screen that basically showed an experience with a person, a positive experience with a person who searched for TripAdvisor New York hotel, and a terrible experience for the person who searched just New York hotel. And so they're saying they use TV and video on YouTube and all that to say search for this term. And then when you do actually do search for the term, you see that they're running paid ads to rank, and they could rank for it, or they're ranking for it organically because it's a branded term. Now, what that does is instead of TripAdvisor paying $4 a click for New York hotel, they're getting it was like 25 cents and for free because they're ranking organically for that. But when you look in Google Trends for the spike in searches for TripAdvisor New York, boom, 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 huge. So they created that demand. So there's all sorts of campaigns that you could do once you understand the how search actually works and why people search and all of that. And so, and you said it exactly right. So
Yeah.
we're gonna run laps around these
Well,
people, these other brands. So good luck. We'll knock them out.
I know that kick sounds cool.
I'll send you the video. I'll send you the video of that part. It's pretty. It's I'm an old broken man now, but it was I was getting it done back then.
Got it. That's so cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Laval.
Absolutely. So everyone, this was ranking in public. I'm Laval Chichester, the founder of Growth Skills, and this is Marina Paul, the CEO and founder of SPRHRA. Thank you for spending time with us. We hope that you had fun and you learned, and we'll see you on the next one.